Why do we so often betray ourselves? Why do we repeat Paul's ancient cry, "I do what I hate"? This tension is not just theology. It's the raw drama of being human. Deep inside, you know what is right, you desire what is noble. You picture yourself rising higher. And yet in the moment of choice, something drags you back. It feels like two souls in one body, locked in combat. And here's the haunting part. That struggle is not weakness, it's a mirror. It reveals what you truly value. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't feel the conflict at all. Ancient wisdom gave many names to this fracture. The Greeks called it akrasia, the weakness of will when desire overwhelms reason. Aristotle described hamartia, missing the mark, as the tragic flaw at the heart of every downfall. Paul called it the war between flesh and spirit, and Jung, centuries later, gave it a modern mask. The shadow, the hidden self that erupts when denied. Different languages, same truth. The human being is divided and the battlefield is within. Think about your own life. Have you ever spoken words you swore you'd never say? Hurt the one you love most? Promised yourself change only to sabotage the very next day? That inner split is not random, it's structural. It's the echo of something universal, woven into our condition. And here's the uncomfortable question. If you keep ignoring it, are you still living consciously or just playing a role written by forces you refuse to face? Pause here. If this message is resonating, if you felt that inner war in your own heart, hit subscribe, tap like, and comment the word "now." That one word is your declaration. You refuse to sleepwalk through life. You choose to face yourself, and yet, here lies the paradox. Every time you confess your weakness, a door cracks open to strength. Every time you name your shadow, you rob it of its chains. What if sin, failure, and conflict are not enemies to be erased, but teachers to be understood? What if the path isn't about perfection at all, but about integration? That's where our journey begins. Because until you look your contradictions in the eye, you'll always mistake the noise of the battle for who you are. But the moment you dare to see, you realize you are not the war. You are the witness, and the witness is free. Every day you live with a split inside you. One part of you dreams of truth, beauty, and goodness, while another whispers shortcuts, distractions, and excuses. And the strangest thing? Both voices sound like you. This is why guilt stings so deeply. It's not only breaking a rule, it's betraying yourself. The Greeks pictured this as a tragic hero missing the mark. Paul described it as the law of sin crouching at the door. Jung framed it as the shadow, the exiled part of your psyche fighting to be acknowledged. Different names, same experience. A war between what you intend and what you actually do. Think about it. How many times have you promised change? Tomorrow I'll wake early. Tomorrow I'll speak with patience. Tomorrow I'll resist that old temptation. And then tomorrow comes and you stumble again. In that moment, shame rushes in, whispering, "You're hopeless. You'll never change." But is that true? Or is the very pain of the struggle proof that something in you still longs for the good? After all, if your soul were dead, you wouldn't even notice the conflict. Here's the twist most people miss. The battle itself is sacred. Awareness of sin, weakness, or shadow is not a sign of defeat. It's the first pulse of awakening. A split life hurts, but it also shows you are not numb. This is why the ancient Hebrews spoke of sin as missing the mark. Because if there's a mark to miss, there's still a target calling you. The ache of conscience is proof you're still aimed at truth. So ask yourself, what if your inner conflict isn't evidence of failure, but evidence of life? What if the gap between your desire and your actions is the very tension that forces you to grow? If suffering is the cry of the soul for growth, then guilt is the teacher that refuses to let you stagnate. And here's the hard question. Are you willing to stop running from that teacher? Or will you keep numbing the pain with distractions? Scrolling, eating, shopping, pretending, until the voice grows faint and you no longer notice at all. Because the only thing more dangerous than wrestling with your shadow is forgetting you even have one. We all wear masks. At work, with family, even scrolling online, we play roles. The responsible one, the funny one, the successful one. Masks aren't always lies. Sometimes they're necessary. Society needs them. But here's the danger. Wear a mask long enough and you forget the face underneath. Then life becomes performance, not presence. You act instead of live. You please instead of grow. And deep inside, the real you waits in the shadows, suffocating. Have you felt that exhaustion? The sense that you're doing everything right, but somehow it's not you doing it? That's the silent fracture masks create. They help you survive in public, but they rob you in private. And here's the irony. The more successful your mask becomes, the harder it is to take off. Because people applaud the mask. They reward it. They say, stay just like that. Meanwhile, your soul whispers, but I'm not just like that. This is why guilt and inner conflict strike so sharply. It's not only about breaking commandments, it's about betraying your essence. Aristotle called it missing the golden mean. Paul called it serving two masters. Jung called it neurosis, the sickness of a divided self. Whatever the language, the truth is the same. To ignore your inner conflict is to trade your soul for applause. But what if guilt isn't punishment? What if it's a compass? Sacred discomfort pointing you back toward alignment? Masks may fool others, but your conscience cannot be deceived. Every pang, every restless night, every whisper of "this isn't me" is your deeper self knocking on the door. The only question is, will you answer? So here's the hook. Imagine living unmasked. Imagine choosing presence over performance, truth over approval. Imagine being so whole that no applause or rejection could shake you. That life isn't a fantasy, it's a practice. But it begins with a terrifying step, facing the fact that the mask isn't you. And until you do, the mask will keep dancing in your place. We usually think of sin as breaking rules. Do this, don't do that. But beneath every broken rule lies something deeper: separation. Sin is not only what you do, it is what fractures your being, divides you from God, from others, and even from yourself. That's why shame feels like exile. You are cut off not only from love, but from your own wholeness. The ancients saw this clearly. In Hebrew, the word chata'a meant to miss the mark. In Greek, hamartia carried the same meaning. An archer aiming for truth but landing off target. Notice what this implies. Sin doesn't erase the target. The law, the truth, the good is still there. Sin simply means you've strayed from alignment, which raises a piercing question. Are you missing the mark because you are evil, or because you are asleep? Think of Adam and Eve. The moment they sinned, they became self-conscious, ashamed, hiding from God. The rupture was not only disobedience, it was disconnection. They covered their bodies, but deeper still, they covered their souls. Don't we do the same? We mask our failures with excuses. We shift blame. We hide behind busyness. Anything to avoid exposure. And yet, the more we hide, the heavier the burden becomes. What if guilt is not meant to crush you, but to awaken you? What if shame is not exile, but a call to return? Sin blinds you until habits become chains and chains become identity. That's just who I am, you say, forgetting that who you are is more than your worst choices. The real tragedy is not falling. It's deciding the ground is where you belong. Here's the uncomfortable hook. Every time you ignore conscience, you widen the gap. And every time you turn back, confessing, naming, owning, you stitch the gap closed. So ask yourself, are you living in connection or in exile? Because hell is not just fire. It's the endless loop of separation, the prison of a self split in two. Suffering is not always punishment. Sometimes it is the raw cry of the soul for growth. Have you noticed this? When inner conflict intensifies, when your choices clash with your conscience, the result isn't just guilt. It's anguish, a heaviness that no distraction can cure. Most of us rush to escape it, binge shows, overwork, numb ourselves with pleasure. But as Jung warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And here's the twist. The very suffering you flee may be the only thing that can heal you. Look closely. Pain has meaning. Just as physical pain signals injury, spiritual pain signals disunity. It tells you something essential is out of order. Without this ache, you would drift aimlessly, blind to your fracture. With it, you are summoned to attention. That's why Goethe in Faust wrote, "Two souls, alas, reside within my breast." The torment is real, but so is the invitation. Will you keep running, or will you finally listen? Here's the paradox. Suffering feels like death, but it often births new life. Think of catharsis in Greek tragedy. The audience weeps, trembles, and leaves lighter, purified. Think of Dante's Purgatory. Every punishment was tailored to cleanse the soul, to restore what was lost. Pain endured consciously becomes the fire that refines, which raises a haunting question. What if your misery isn't proof of failure, but proof that your soul refuses to settle for less than truth? The danger, of course, is numbing the cry. The more you silence it with distraction, the more distorted it becomes, festering into addiction, projection, despair. But when you face it, name it, confess it, something shifts. You discover that suffering isn't an enemy to escape, but a teacher to embrace. So ask yourself, what if every pang of guilt, every restless night, every moment of inner ache is not random cruelty, but a coded message? What if the very thing you dread is the threshold to your transformation? The sins you refuse to see in yourself do not disappear. They leak into your world. Jung called this projection. When the shadow you deny shows up in the faces of others. You see arrogance, greed, deceit, and cruelty out there, never realizing you're staring at a mirror. Have you noticed how certain people trigger you instantly, almost irrationally? That's not random. They act as hooks for the hidden parts of you. And here's the catch. The more blind you are to your shadow, the more power it has to run your life from the dark. Projection distorts reality. It spins illusions, turning the world into a replica of your unknown face. That's why conflicts repeat, relationships collapse, and patterns trap you. Until you name the shadow, you remain its puppet. But when you dare to ask, why does this person provoke such strong feelings in me? You begin the work of reclaiming yourself. Awareness doesn't erase the shadow, but it integrates it, turning poison into medicine. Think of sin in this light, not merely as rule-breaking, but as the eruption of unowned parts of the soul. When denied, they sabotage. When confessed, they transform. This is why confession, whether to God, to another, or even to your own journal, has such power. To name the darkness is to drag it into light. Anything named can be dealt with. Anything hidden will deal with you. So here's the piercing question. What do you blame most in others? Laziness? Pride? Lust? Greed? Could it be that the very traits you despise are shadows of your own unintegrated self? If so, your enemy is not them. It's the exiled part of you still waiting for recognition. Here's the hook. Projection builds a cocoon around your life, layer by layer. until you can no longer see truth. But the moment you withdraw a projection, admitting that shadow is mine, you tear a hole in the cocoon, and through that hole light pours in. The path of wholeness begins not when you conquer your enemy, but when you realize the enemy is your teacher. Most people think sin can be conquered by sheer determination. Just grit your teeth, make a plan, and try harder. But willpower left alone doesn't free you, it inflates you. Every victory you claim by pride alone plants the seeds of a greater fall. Haven't you felt it? You break one bad habit, only to find 7 others waiting at the door. It's as if the ego celebrates its own strength, then quietly builds a higher prison wall. Paul spoke of this when he described the thorn in the flesh, a persistent weakness that no human effort could remove. Why does such a thorn remain? Because weakness has a strange purpose. It humbles us. It forces us to recognize our dependence on grace. Without that humility, we become self-righteous, mistaking control for freedom. And here's the paradox. The harder you fight your shadow with pride, the more you feed it. Think of the old warning. When an unclean spirit leaves a man, it wanders restless, then returns with 7 worse companions. The house is swept clean but empty. No foundation, no guard, no presence. Isn't this what happens when we change outward behavior without inner transformation? The result looks neat but hollow. Sooner or later, the old patterns storm back, stronger than before. So here's the uncomfortable question. Are you conquering sin, or just rearranging it? Are you building strength or building pride disguised as discipline? True transformation is not about force. It's about foundation. Without humility, without vigilance, without grace, the soul remains like an unlocked house, tidy, but vulnerable. The hook is this. Maybe your repeated failures are not evidence of doom, but invitations to deeper surrender. Maybe the point isn't to prove you're strong, but to admit you need something beyond yourself. Because only then can the walls come down and the prison door open. Will you keep polishing the cage? Or will you dare to walk free? Every tradition speaks of fire, not just as destruction, but as purification. The alchemists called it albedo, the whitening, the washing away of impurities. The Greeks spoke of catharsis, a cleansing through tragedy that left the soul lighter. Dante pictured souls in purgatory carrying weights, walking through smoke or enduring pains that mirrored their sins, not to punish but to refine. Even modern psychology, with Freud's talking cure, borrows this ancient truth. Bringing darkness into light burns, but it heals. Here's the paradox. Suffering doesn't mean you are cursed, it means you are being purified. Think of your darkest nights, the moments when everything seemed lost. Did you not also find, buried in the ashes, a strange new strength? Pain, when carried consciously, scours away the illusions you once clung to. It forces you to see what really matters. Without fire, gold stays hidden in the ore. Without struggle, the soul stays trapped in its shadows. But most of us resist the fire. We want freedom without heat, clarity without pain, growth without loss. And so we avoid it, distracting ourselves, numbing ourselves, pretending we can skip the furnace. But what happens when you avoid purification? The impurities remain. The shadow festers. The soul stagnates. That's why neurosis often arises. It is the symptom of growth denied, the scream of a soul refusing to stay asleep. So here's the hook. What if the very fire you fear is the key to your freedom? What if confession, repentance, even the tears you resist are not humiliation, but initiation? Every breakdown has the potential to become breakthrough, if you endure the heat without fleeing. The real question isn't whether you will face the fire. Life will bring it to you one way or another. The real question is, will you step in willingly, trusting it to cleanse, or will you fight it, only to be consumed? Secrets rot the soul. What we hide does not vanish. It festers, splits off, and grows in the dark. Jung saw confession as the first step toward individuation, the process of becoming whole. Christianity has long understood this too. Confess your sins to one another, that you may be healed. Why? Because what remains unspoken rules you. What is spoken loses its chains. Confession is not just admitting rules broken, it is integrating fragments of the self. To say I was wrong is not weakness, it is alignment. It reconnects what was split. Without confession, the burden grows heavy, and we project our hidden faults onto others, blaming them for what festers in us. But when we own our darkness, healing begins. The soul, like a wound, can only close once it has been cleaned. Think about the times you've carried a secret mistake. Didn't it weigh more than the act itself? Didn't it twist your thoughts, poison your peace, and isolate you from others? That is the prison of secrecy. And here's the paradox. The moment you reveal it, whether to God, a trusted friend, or even in honest writing, the weight lifts. Light floods the chamber where shame once lived. The walls crack open. But here's the hook. Confession is not just therapeutic, it is revolutionary. It breaks the illusion of perfection and forces humility, the soil in which real growth can take root. To confess is to rebel against pride, to say, I refuse to live divided. It is not about public humiliation, but private liberation. The question is this: what are you hiding? What story have you locked away so deeply that it now rules you from the shadows? And are you willing to face the terror of naming it, for the sake of freedom? Because until you confess, you are two people, the one you show and the one you bury. Wholeness begins the moment you refuse to bury yourself any longer. Here is the truth we've been circling all along. Sin is not just the breaking of rules, but the breaking of self. Every shadow denied, every mask worn too long, every secret buried too deep, it all fractures the soul. And yet this fracture is not the end of the story. It is the beginning, because the very struggle you feel, the very conflict that exhausts you, is also the path that awakens you. Without the tension of opposites, there is no growth. Without awareness of your fall, there is no rising. Look back at the journey. Paul's cry of inner conflict, the Greek tragedy of hubris. The shadow Jung warned us never to ignore. All of them point to the same hidden door. The door opens not through perfection, but through honesty, through confession, through suffering carried consciously, through fire that purifies instead of destroys. The goal was never spotless morality. The goal was always wholeness. So here's the challenge. Will you keep running from yourself, wearing masks and projecting shadows, waiting for tomorrow to fix what festers today? Or will you choose right now to step into the furnace of truth? Remember, the worst sin is not falling, it is refusing to see. Ignorance is the real hell because it blinds you to who you are and who you were meant to become. This is your moment. Don't just watch, act. Hit subscribe, tap like, and comment the word awake below. That single word marks your decision. No more sleepwalking. No more excuses. No more pretending you are less than whole. And here is the impact line I want you to carry beyond this video. The shadow you fear is the door to the self you long for. Step through it, because life is too short to live divided, and eternity is too long to stay asleep.